Hey people, what's up? My name is Kay Hart, and today I'm going to show you 3 easy tips you can use to mix your 808s and kicks into a punchy mix rather than a muddy mess. And spoiler alert, none of these tips involve touching your faders or using an EQ. So let's go ahead and jump right into Ableton and let's get started. Okay, so the first tip when we're thinking about mixing our 808 and our kick is our sound choice. And honestly, this is like the most important thing in terms of mixing in general, are picking sounds that are going to sound good together. So I'm going to start with, I have 2 808s loaded up here, 2 samples from pretty popular sample packs on Splice, so the Southside and Cashmere packs. And I'm just going to show you guys kind of what makes up an 808 bass. So this is the first one. And if we zoom in here, basically an 808 bass has 2 sections. It has this kind of transient, which usually is more like a kick, and the sustained portion, which is the bass note that we actually hear. So if I chop this, I'm just going to hit Control E and cut this in half. So this is basically a kick. That's the transient of our 808. And then the other half of it is going to be our sustained note. So something like this, if we go back to just that first section, which is the kick. So this one has a pretty punchy kick already. And honestly, I would probably use this sample in particular on its own without trying to mix a separate kick. I'll show you guys a tip for mixing this though in a second. Let's look at the other 808 I have here. And this is from the Cashmere pack. And you'll see here, this has the same thing going on. So I'll cut this about here. So that one is not quite as punchy. Not quite as much attack on that transient. And then of course we just have the other half, which is our sustained sub bass there. So if I wanted to mix my own kick, I would probably choose one more like this rather than this one that already has a punchy kick in it. Okay, so I've loaded up a couple of kick samples. All of these are taken from Splice. And I'm going to show you guys how these different kicks are going to mix with this 808. The thing that I look for when I'm going to mix my kick and my 808 is I want to be able to hear the kick with the 808 without doing anything to it. Because if I can't hear the kick at all, it's going to be really difficult to try and mix them together. It's going to take a lot of EQ, a lot of side chaining, a lot of just work. So if you can't hear the two together, you probably want to pick different samples. So this is the really punchy one to start with. So let's see if we can hear these different kicks. All right, so this is the first kick sample. That's with the kick. And let's try it without it. So you can definitely hear that kick. Let's try this kick, which sounds like this. This is a very subby kind of long kick. This is probably not the kick that I would choose, but let's see how they sound together. So we're not really getting anything extra from this. It's honestly kind of muddying it up because it's really long and it's bumping into the sustained note, and we're also not getting a good attack from it. So this is probably a bad choice. Let's check the next kick. So again, not really a good attack on it. We can hear it better than the other one, but probably still not a great choice. Let's try this kick. So that one we can hear. Tight attack at the beginning, very clicky so you can hear it, and it's also short. You can also add a fade to this if we need to make it even shorter. If we wanted to mix these together, what we could do is get a little bit surgical here. And say I want to use this first kick. What I'm going to do is actually fade this so you can make it however you want it to be. So if we want to get rid of basically all of that kick at the front, and then we'll just bring this in like this. so they'll fade together. Basically, you just want to find a kick that's nice and short, and it has a really punchy attack and some good mid to high range frequencies, and that's what's going to help it cut through that 808. Okay, the second mixing tip, and I'm sure you guys have heard this one before, is sidechain compression, and this is super important for 808s and kicks. Alright, so I have just a little melody loop here to start with. We're going to make a quick 808 and kick pattern, and then we'll dial in some sidechain compression. The kick is basically hitting on when the 808 hits, except for these little triplets at the end. There's no sidechain compression, no EQing, nothing on these. This is just how the 808 and the kick sounds by itself. Okay, so I just dropped a compressor onto my 808 track here. And we're going to open this up and click the sidechain option, and we want to sidechain it from our kick. And so let's play this and we'll dial in some stuff here. So basically the sidechain compressor is ducking the start of the 808, which is usually kind of that kick transient, and it's allowing our kick to be heard over it. And the main things you want to look at when you're setting up your sidechain compression, usually you want a pretty quick attack because you want it to catch that initial transient of the 808. So you want it to come down pretty quick. And then the release, I usually like to leave pretty quick as well because you don't want to cut into that sustain. That's why you want a short kick to begin with, because you just want that kick to be heard and then have the kick get out of the way so your bass, your sustained bass note can be heard. And you can see here that the sidechain compression isn't even making that large of a difference because we already picked good sounds to begin with. This is just giving it a little bit of extra help. All right, the third easy tip you can do is mixing your 808 and your kick in the same bus. Okay, so usually what I like to do is have a mix bus just for my drums, and this includes, my kick, snare, hi-hats, all that stuff, but it's a pretty simple chain. It's just a glue compressor and a drum bus, which is basically another type of saturator. And so what I like to do is actually take my bass and drag it into my group mixing with my drums. Okay, now what we can start to do is use this compressor and this drum bus to kind of saturate it and glue the sounds together and make them work together better. So we'll just take this back a little bit, add a little bit of makeup gain. And then we'll come over to the drum bus here. I'm going to leave the drive there, bring this up just a touch. And this transients button is kind of like a transient shaper. So if I go this way, it's usually going to make it shorter and snappier. And this way it will kind of sustain things. That's obviously way too much, but I like just a little bit there. It kind of makes the 808, the sustained portion, come out a little bit better. So let's go ahead and just group these. And I'll show you if I turn it on and off. So this is with it on. And off. Alright, so there are the 3 tips. I hope some of those were helpful. And if you learned something, please don't forget to hit that like button, that subscribe button down there. It really helps my channel out and I greatly appreciate it. And I'm going to go ahead and just add some chords and drums to this one to finish off the loop. And I will see you guys in the next one. Take care.